is a presentation of the Match Talk Podcast Network. It's time for the ODU Wrestling Monarch Mattcast, a show dedicated to all things related to the Old Dominion Wrestling program. On the web at monarchmattcast.com. Now, here's your host, three-time National Wrestling Writer and Broadcaster of the Year, and 2004 ODU alumnus, Jason Bryant.
Welcome back, Monarch fans. It's another episode of the ODU Wrestling Monarch Mattcast. My name is Jason Bryant, proud ODU alum 2004. And in case you've been pilfering through the alumni magazine, yes, Monarch magazine, yep, that would be me. Anyway, shameless self-promotion over and done with. I had a chance to come back out for the ODU alumni match. Things didn't go the Monarchs' way as number 5 Missouri kind of laid the wood to us a little bit, 36-3. The one win coming by Jack Deco at 184 pounds over returning All-American Willie Miklas. But it was great to get back home and see some of you folks out there. Obviously, Charlie Church, Bill Calley, who have been good friends over the years. Of course, the Church man with Gedham right across the street from where I used to live at 4200 Bowden's Ferry, right there on the corner, right on the 40 Deuce. Across from now the Teletetnet building, which actually they were building it when I was a student there. And then as I drive through and my wife drops me off at the tailgate outside the Edge, and I got a brief moment to basically have a natty light with Ryan Williams, Nathan Coburn, Nick Polano, and tell a few stories about Polano at Crazy Charlie's or the Edge. But I digress. I had a chance to check out the Southern Miss football. It was great to basically be there for the football tailgate. I got there a little late because, when you're bringing two kids out east on a plane, my 4-year-old was fine. The 4-month-old, now she's 5 months old, just a little difficult to travel with. But, hey, I got a chance to check out the game. Was up in the box. Coach Martin, Coach Dixon hooked it up. Got a chance to see some parents of them ODU wrestlers. And, again, the Missouri bout didn't go the way of the Monarchs, but we're talking about the number 5 ranked team in the country. And there's a reason they're that good. But, great opportunity to get back. It's probably I get about one time a year I get to announce at the TED. I didn't get to do it last year. But this year, great to be back. And then the bill, yes, you know what? This is about me right now, okay, folks? No, I'm just kidding. The name of TED, I trotted it out in the Mason Crown back in when they put the first shovel in the ground to build that thing. I says, this thing needs a nickname, and I'm calling it the TED. Wrote it in the Mason Crown. Documented it. The Virginian Pilot even credited it with so-and-so. But anyway, I'm driving down Hampton Boulevard, and I look, and there's this giant, I was like, what is this giant building? What did they do to BAL? No, they put a giant building in front of BAL across from the TED. Oh, my goodness. Those of you who listen to this to keep an update on what's going on in Norfolk, things are changing down there, man. I mean, I do long for the days of Mr. T's Tacos or Speedies, as you call it, and College Night at 44, which apparently the 4400 Club has been resurrected, but only in name only. It's like the big blue room at the TED is now like the 4400 Club or something. So anyway, talking wrestling here on the show. Monarchs currently 1-3 on the year in dual meet competition. Again, as we said, lost the opener to Missouri 36-3. The one win coming by Jack Deco. Then 2 more ranked teams were on the agenda heading down to Chapel Hill. Monarchs drop a 28-12 outcome to number 25 North Carolina, wins there by Alex Madrigal, Selden Wright, Jack Deco, and Kevin Beazley, who will again be our guest. Then heading out to West Gym in Iowa. This is where conference realignment has made things difficult. A good friend of mine, Kyle Klingman, who works for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame's Dan Gable Museum, is a Northern Iowa grad. I, of course, is an Old Dominion grad. Well, when we used to talk when we were working Wrestling 411, it was just strange because ODU would never wrestle Northern Iowa. I mean, we'd see each other at like the Midlands or something, but that's never a thing. Now they're in the same freaking conference. Are you telling me that Cedar Falls, Iowa, and Norfolk, Virginia should be in the same conference? And it's wild. But it's added another dynamic to our wrestling rivalry, as he likes to taunt me a little bit and said, hey, I couldn't make it because I was actually in New York at the Grapple the Garden announcing there. So I was kind of bummed that I couldn't make it down. The closest time I would have had a chance to see the Monarchs this year, about 3 hours down in Cedar Falls. But the Panthers of UNI putting a 29-9 win over the Monarchs there. Kevin Beazley with a win, and Will Hilliard picking up the forfeit at heavyweight. And then things get back to the winning ways. 1-3 on the year, a 22-9 victory over Northern Illinois, the first MAC win of the season. Won 7 out of 10. Wins by Alex Madrigal, Emilio Saavedra, Selden Wright, Antonio Agee picking up a huge win over, McMurdy from NIU has been around a long time. This guy's got some good wins. So that's a breakthrough win for Antonio Agee, just a true freshman from up there in Hayfield. Got to like that. That's good movement. You don't know how good that win is. That's a confidence-building win right there. Jack Deco, Beazley, and Hillard with the win. Next Monarch home match coming up on December 20th is another ranked team. This is why it's going to be a little bit rough to see. The records are going to be a little deceiving because 4 of the first 5 matches this year are going to be against ranked teams, 2 of which in the top 10. NC State will come in to the TED December 20th, ranked 9th in the nation. That could change as they've got a duel with Nebraska coming up. They could move up. Also, programming note. I was wrong about the Midlands, folks, because Matt Storniolo didn't fill me in properly. I'm going to pass the buck completely to former Old Dominion assistant and current Northwestern head coach Matt Storniolo. He told me that the Midlands were going to be at the Sears Center in Hoffman Estates this year. That's next year, folks. So hopefully if you've booked anything based on my recommendation on scheduling for this show, I suggest you find a new travel agent. 2, it will be at Welsh Ryan Arena this year. So if you're staying near the barbershop in Skokie, Illinois, you're good to go. If you're staying at the Doubletree in Skokie, Illinois, you're good to go. If you're staying at the Wellington, Orrington, that's what it is. I'm thinking Beef Wellington for some reason. At the Orrington and various places in downtown Evanston. The Buffalo Wild Wings has gone there, by the way. But you should be good for previous engagements in places you stayed. So don't make your hotel arrangements for Hoffman Estates this year yet. So programming update. Monarchs at the Midlands, December 29th and 30th. Those of you Monarch faithful who will be in Evanston, hit me up. I'll be there announcing for, I believe, the 5th. I can't remember how many years. This will be my 5th or 6th year announcing the Midlands. It's one of the greatest wrestling tournaments. Great history, over 50 years. I suggest if you can deal with the cold weather because it's like 10 degrees right here in Minnesota as we record this on December 9th. It's cold. And it's going to be cold in Chicago. Polar vortex, what are they calling it? I'm not a weatherman. I didn't go to Old Dominion for meteorology. If I wanted to do that, I'd have gone like Georgia Tech or something. I don't know. I wanted to be on the Weather Channel as a kid. I always thought Georgia Tech would be logical because the Weather Channel was in Atlanta. But guess what? Anywhere but Georgia State, right? Oh, in other news, they lost again. But we're not talking football here. Speaking of football, actually, I am going to talk football just for a minute. Scheduling. I was all set. I had the wife convinced that if the Monarchs football program got to a bowl game and it was in a situation where I could go, okay, Hawaii was out on Christmas Eve. That just wasn't going to happen. The Bahamas would have been out 2 days before Christmas. Now, New Orleans and New Mexico, and as engaging as Albuquerque, or wherever the heck the New Mexico Bowl is, Santa Fe, it's somewhere. I did not want my first Old Dominion football bowl game experience to be in New Mexico. Now, New Orleans, I was set for that, but freaking Southern Miss has got to go screw that up by beating Louisiana Tech and becoming bowl eligible. So sadly, I got my one ODU football game this year, which was exciting. They beat the tar out of Southern Miss. I actually got to chat a little wrestling with Wood Seelig in the box later on during it. Also, shout out to John DeLita and Adam Wright. Got to spend a lot of time with them. And yeah, I was hoping to do that. But guess what? Bahamas, 2 days before Christmas, can't do it. Anything after Christmas would have been toast because of the Midlands. Anyway, now we're going to talk to Kevin Beazley. Cue the roar. Episode 36 continues on as Kevin Beazley now joining us, the redshirt junior. I don't know. It seems like you're going to be in college as long as I was at this rate, man. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks. It feels good to be back. Yeah, I've redshirted a couple times now. I'm pretty old.
Well, before we get into your season, which you're 8-1 right now, and the lone loss, of course, coming to Olympic bronze medalist and two-time NCAA champ Jaden Cox, we'll kind of, we won't talk a whole lot about that. But as we talk about that experience, you were second at the U.S. World Team Trials in 2015, which qualified you for an opportunity to take an Olympic red shirt, and you opted to take it. Rare that college wrestlers get 2 red shirts, but what went behind that decision to say, all right, you know what, I'm second to Kaylor Williams, I'm going to train for this Olympic thing?
So the mindset behind that was everyone I sat down with, the people that really helped me make this decision, and it was the best decision for me and the goals I wanted to accomplish. I don't want to just be, an All-American NCAA champion. I have aspirations beyond that, and we all believe that 2016 was the year was a year for me to have a great opportunity to make the Olympic team, and I had only trained for 3 weeks before the U.S. Open in Greco, and I had so much success, and so we figured if I could go out to the training center and put a whole year of training behind me, and the gains I could have made, but obviously that was cut a little bit short in November at the NYC. But the decision was still great, and I think I grew a lot because of it, no matter the outcome.
Yeah, let's a little bit about the injury. I remember watching the match, and it looked like you got lifted and returned. And did you post on the arm wrong, and you dislocated your elbow? What was the injury?
I tore my UCL, so I had Tommy John surgery. The guy was straight lifting me, and I kind of posted my hand trying to float over top of him, and my hand got stuck in the mat, and I tore my UCL from the bone in my elbow.
Yeah, so that set you back. Now, what was the situation like? I mean, in a situation with an Olympic red shirt, you're not typically in school. You're not enrolled. You're somewhere else. Where were you basing your training out of at the time, and how did that injury basically affect the course of that whole year?
So I was living in Colorado Springs at the Olympic Training Center, and so I had my surgery done there by the guy who does the surgery for all the athletes there, which was pretty incredible. And they took really good care of me. I did all my rehab at the Olympic Training Center, which was probably the best situation for me. They had the best rehab, and we still had I still had an opportunity in the doctor's mind and my physical therapist's mind that I could make it back for Olympic trials. But it didn't end up working out, and the timeline came down to the wire, and I wasn't healing as quickly as we'd hoped. But so everyone out there was real great to me with the injury, and Coach Lindland and Momir and all them took real good care of me. Even though I was injured, I was still their guy. So that was nice.
What were some other things that being at the training center does for an athlete? Even though you're going through rehab, you're not actually able to be on the mat that much, but they've got a new facility. They've renovated the wrestling room. It's just huge. When I was living out there, it was 3 mats, and it was like a hallway, and it was tight. Now it's just open, expansive. I think there's 8 to 10 mats in there. I mean, it's got to be like kind of a dream come true from a training situation from what you've been able to experience out there, even with the injury.
It was amazing. It's unlike any other wrestling facility you can ever imagine, and I think that's why you have a lot of the best athletes going out there all the time to train. And the weight room that they've made. So when they expanded the wrestling room, they made a new weight room and training room, and the rehab facilities with hot and cold tubs, steam room, sauna. The weight room is world class. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen a weight room as high tech as the one at the OTC. They even have a hill, like it's a hill inside the training center to do hill sprints if you want to, even when it's cold outside. So the training there is world class, and it was incredible to be surrounded by the people that I was surrounded by there. So even when I was injured, I was growing. My mind was growing. I got a better outlook on the sport and different perspective. It was really cool. There's a whole experience. I wouldn't, even though I was injured, I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So were you in the dorms there? Were you staying at the Athlete Center?
Yes. Yeah, I was in building 83, room 215.
Yeah, that's my old weight class, but definitely wasn't good enough to be in that room. So, okay, here's one thing when people go to the training center. Again, this is something I miss about living in Colorado Springs and getting to go there and have that access. The food, man. The dining hall at the OTC is unlike any other. Explain that to those who are unfamiliar.
It is unlike anything because you have world-class athletes living there, and in the dorms you don't have a kitchen, you don't have really a big enough fridge to store the proper food you need, and so that cafeteria they take care of you. It's open all the time. You don't have a number of swipes. If you're a resident, have meals, you have unlimited swipes to go in there and eat. And they provide you with the best meals possible to train, and they mix it up. It's not the same stuff every single day. When Michael Phelps was there, the food was a little bit better than when Michael Phelps wasn't there. But and that's amazing. And that's probably the reason I came back 235 rather than my usual, 216, 217. The food there was unreal, and I wasn't able to train, so I put on a little bit of weight.
Yeah, I've been in there when Phelps has walked in, and that's always been an interesting thing because he's got his handler that follows him and no pictures. It's just like basically, like, man, come on.
Right, yeah. And Michael was cool when we were there, but it's crazy. It was really crazy. You could tell when he was coming into town because the food started to get a lot better than when he's not there. And don't get me wrong, it's always good, but it stepped up a level when he was there.
How about Flower? Is she not the best dining hall person, the best cook ever?
We call her mom when we're there. All the resident athletes call her mom. We wake up in the morning and she's making us eggs, and she's fantastic. And the Pad Thai Tuesdays.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who's lived at the OTC can forget about Pad Thai Tuesdays.
Here it is, a wrestling show, and we've been talking a lot about food. Okay, now let's get back on the path here with the rehab. So from an educational standpoint, what is that balance like? I mean, what are the rules? What things could you and could you not do regarding the college side of things while you're on that Olympic red shirt? We were worried about since I moved to Colorado Springs, we were worried about me taking classes and the NCAA thinking that it was possible for me to be a full-time student and still train for the Olympics. So I didn't take any classes. And some of the other rules, I couldn't get paid for my winnings, but I could accept a stipend for being number 2 on the ladder. That was my living stipend, but I couldn't get paid for placing second at the U.S. Open, or if I would have placed at the NYC or any other tournaments like that, I wouldn't have been able to accept the prize money. But I was able to accept the living fund that the top 3 athletes get to live and train. Other than that, the rules, I kind of tried to stay away from that. The coaches just made sure I didn't break anything. Yeah, so at what point do you say, all right, the cycle's over, Joe Rao wins the spot, we don't get the weight qualified? Was that kind of bittersweet to watch, to know that, you got a couple good athletes there at your weight class? Joe Rao moved up. Kayla Williams is, quite explosive and dynamic. And then to see that we don't get the weight class qualified down in Rio. What's that like from a wrestler at that weight class's standpoint?
It hurts, especially because once I was done, I was out, and then I'm not bitter, and I'm not petty. And so I was a Joe Rao fan, and I wanted us to do as well as we could at the Olympics, because Greco has not been doing as well as we probably should be. And so you want to qualify every weight. You want everyone to come back with medals, because it's good for Greco in our country, because we need that right now, because it isn't held to the standard that freestyle is held to, and it isn't looked at in the same light as freestyle is in our country. And I think that we need the most positive things we can for the sport of Greco-Roman wrestling. So I was Joe Rao's fan, and I was hoping that he could do it, and I could just think, well, there's only one way to change that, and that's to be in control in 2020. So that's the game plan.
Tokyo 2020. So by that time, if you get another red shirt, you still might be in the Monarch lineup at that point. But yeah. Injury heals up, you come back, you go back to Michigan right away, or do you come back to Norfolk as soon as the your time at the OTC is over?
I left Michigan, or I left Colorado and went to Michigan for about a month. I was there until mid-April, when the guy who was subleasing from me, Rough Works, he subleased from me, and his sublease was up, and he started a new lease, and then that's when I moved back down here. So mid-April, I think, was when I moved back down here. I was home for about a month, like March 12th until March 15th, when I moved back down here.
So when does your mind shift from Greco-Roman back to the collegiate mats, the folk style wrestling, and saying, all right, well, that that sucked as far as my injury goes. I got to get ready I got 2 more years to place and win a national title here. How quickly does your brain switch from Greco training to folk style training once you were cleared to get back on the mat?
As soon as I could get back on the mat. So I didn't get cleared to wrestle until March 12th-ish, and that's when I went home and I started training with my coaches from my high school, Mitch Hancock and Anthony Biondo. We started just working little things, drilling slow, no live, just really getting back into it, knocking a lot of the rust off, because not only had it been 5-6 months since I had wrestled, it had been even longer than that since I had been in a folk style stance and attacked legs, because when I was training before my injury, it was strictly Greco. So it was just really knocking all the rust off, getting some timing back, which was, I think it was nice to have that injury and being able to transition back into folk style, because I got to go slow. Because if I were not to have been injured and say I had made the Olympic team and wrestled in Rio, then I would have been thrown right back into folk style wrestling live a little bit quicker than I was. I had a little more smooth transition while I was home, so that was nice.
So as you get back onto the mats, here we go. You start out at 197. You win a tournament, and then all of a sudden, first home match of the year. It's the alumni match, and then you've got the 2-time national champion, the guy who's in conference, and oh, by the way, he happened to win an Olympic bronze medal in the other style. I mean, starting your season basically with Jaden Cox. I mean, what does that do for you in knowing where you're at and what you need to get to?
There's no better test in my weight class, right? And the guy who's been pretty dominant in it for the last couple of years, and I think my mindset towards the season is a little different than it used to be. And so wrestling Jaden Cox in the beginning of the year is great, because it's a test, and November means nothing. So whether I had gone out there and pinned him or gotten teched, or how it actually happened, that doesn't matter. It was a great opportunity for me to get my hands on him and get a feel and really know where I'm at with the best guy for my weight class in the country.
Where do you need to improve as a wrestler still to this point? After, you're starting your 8-1, there's that one loss, and you've won close matches, whereas, maybe a year or two ago, you were in close matches and you wouldn't win as many of those close matches. Where do you still need to improve?
Well, especially with Cox, I need to be able to get away. And you see that with everyone this year. I don't know if he's wrestled 3 top 10 guys, and I don't think any one of us have gotten away from him when we've picked down. And he's the only person who's ridden me for probably more than 15 seconds this year. But that's huge, being able to get away from him and having more opportunities on my feet. Because I was in late in the third period on a shot, and I just did it. I didn't score, and there was a mystery point that came from an untied shoe in my match that I think changed my mindset when I was on top, when I was given my opportunity to ride him. But I think I need to be able to get away, and I need to get more attached on top or on my feet. And I'd really like to get a chance on top with a better mindset that if I ride him out, I'm going to be rewarded rather than how the situation was in our dual meet with the fluke untied shoe point. So
yeah, and thing is, that is in the rule book. If the shoe comes off by rule, no matter what the situation, that's a stall. So I remember the situation. I was like, "Oh, dude, that sucks," because it's in the rule book, and I mean, obviously, you understand why it's in the rule book. But again, those things you're just like, man, what the really?
Right.
That's what
I was thinking. My shoes are lace covered, taped. And like I had them under my lace cover, and I had them taped. And it's just one of those fluke things. And I think that came down to a different rule that's in there too. The back out rule where the officials are pressured to make stalling calls on the edge. Where I think that sometimes we should just let wrestlers wrestle, because in a top 10 matchup in a 0-0 match, he forced the stall call. Then that later on came to bite him in the butt when my shoe came untied. But that's part of wrestling, and I know better now.
Now, let's talk about the Southeast Open title. It talked about in your previous appearance on the show, which is we're talking 2 years ago now. You were in those situations where I think your 15 losses or something in your career at that point, like 13 were like by 1 or 2 points. Now you're swinging that around. You're winning those close matches. What has changed for you mentally to be in those situations where, okay, I'm sick of losing the 3-2 match. I need to win the 3-2 match.
It's funny. I was surrounded by, when I was at the OTC, by some of the greatest minds in the sport of wrestling. And I ate dinner almost every night with Dustin Kilgore, who's a 3-time All-American, national champ, national finalist. J.D. Bergman was living out there when I was there. Chase Tammy was part of the residence program, and so I just got to pick those guys' minds and look at their mindset. And I love the sport of wrestling, and I always used to dive into wrestling and read about it all the time and talk about it all the time. And when those guys weren't on the mat, they weren't really talking about it, and they weren't really, it didn't consume their mind. Kilgore has a wife or fiance. Chase has a girlfriend. JD has a fiance, and he's involved in his company. And so these guys are who are at the top level. They don't think about wrestling as much, and so my mindset changed, and I'm able to live a little more carefree when it comes to wrestling, and I don't care as much about winning and losing when I'm out there as much as I do about just enjoying the process of having fun. And when I'm having fun, I'm shooting, I'm scoring points, I'm attacking more, I'm controlling ties, I'm hand fighting, and that's what's fun for me. And I'm only controlling the things I can control. I can't control winning and losing. And once I've realized that it's become so much more fun, and it's actually made me have more success. But that's not what is most important to me. The most important thing to me right now is just having fun and enjoying it. The only time winning and losing really matters, and even then you can't control it, and that's in March.
All right, coming off that victory, the 22-9 dual meet win over Northern Illinois, there's that guy again. There's that guy from the time you were a kid, Sean Scott. You come away with the college win. I mean, so what's this make your all? I think your dad Dave said it was you were like 1-50 against him or something. All like going back to when you were kids. I mean, is that how close to that is that accurate?
It's pretty close. I think he missed one. I beat him once when we were young. I had our first ever meeting when we were maybe 9 years old. I beat him, and then after that, I think it was 3 weekends in a row, he pinned me in a chicken wing. My dad wasn't too happy about that. Losing didn't matter, but getting pinned was never acceptable. But yeah, it's pretty close. I think it's 3 in a lot. 3 in a lot. But if you count the win at Mac where he injury defaulted, there's 4, but we don't really count that. So yeah, 3, and he has a lot of wins over me. So that was a nice one to get in college.
Yeah, because I remember when you were redshirting freshman, you're wrestling him in at the Midlands, or it was your freshman. I remember one year, and that's when your dad says, "Yeah, he's wrestled him like 30, 40 times." I was like, "How the match go?" He goes, "Pretty much all of them like that." I mean, so they've all been those just stomach wrenching, ride out, close type of matches. And was there something different for the last win? I know they had to review the takedown and give it to you, but is that play into what you were saying about your mindset changing after coming back from the OTC? Be like, all right, well, that's one hurdle. I finally beat this guy in college.
Yeah, well, and that match it kind of shows the difference in how I'm wrestling. And usually I only get 1, 2, 3 attacks off against him. We know each other so well. I mean, like you said, we've wrestled each other over 50 times in our career probably. We know each other so well, and I usually only get 1 or 2 attacks off of the match. And where I'm best against him, especially, is on my feet. And in that match, if you go and watch it, I think my dad counted it. Until I got my takedown, the attacks I had 12, he had 1. And that ended up being the difference. Is you attack 12, 13 times, you're bound to get 1. And especially with wrestlers who know each other so well, I got to attack 12 times on a guy like Sean, someone who's so good, whose defense is so good. I'm not going to score if I only shoot 2 or 3 times, or I'm not going to have as much success as I did in that match if I don't attack. So yeah, it comes back down to the mindset.
When it comes to this team, there's a lot of youth in the lineup, and then there's that balance of seniors and leadership. I mean, you and Jack kind of came in the same year, even though you're with the extra red shirt a year behind him. And what are you and Jack doing to try to kind of push each other to get on that podium? He's been on there once before, but he's taken some weird losses here in the early part of the season. But what's it like for you guys kind of anchoring the upper weights and y'all's relationship with each other and the rest of the program?
Yeah, he's one of my best friends, and we've lived with each other for ever since we've gotten to college, except for last year where I was gone. But he's my workout partner, one of my best friends, and we go to battle with each other every day. And our goal is to make each other the best we can. And we joke around, and sometimes when we post pictures on Instagram, we call each other the dynamic duo. We're a 1-2 punch up top that, you can count on us to win almost every match when we step out there. And it's because we go so hard when we're there, and we know each other so well, and we have a great relationship when it comes to being on the mat and off the mat. And yeah, I mean, it's great to have him because I don't know what I'd do. We have such a good relationship with each other on the mat, off the mat. It's really a blessing to have Jack go through this with Jack.
Mentioned this in the open before you came on that in that dual meet against Northern Iowa, Antonio Angie, a true freshman from Northern Virginia, picks up kind of a breakthrough win for him. McMurdy's been around for a while; he's had some solid wins. But what have you seen from the freshmen and the younger guys this year? That they're taking their bumps right now. There's been some hard dual meet losses, but for a guy like Angie, what do you say to him to keep his confidence up? Because it's not easy for a true freshman at that weight class in any level of college wrestling.
No, and our freshmen and the younger guys in our lineup, they're in the lineup for a reason. They're good. We're a good team. There's a reason that we were ranked top 25 early in the years. We're a good team. It's just that the 1 hour weigh-ins and dual meets and the pressure situations are different, and you got to get used to them. In college wrestling, it's tough as it is, and I try to let them know. I started out my dual meet career maybe like 0-6. Before I started figuring it out. So, and that was as a redshirt freshman, not even as a true freshman. So I didn't really figure it out until maybe Virginia duels as a redshirt freshman. So these guys I'm not worried, because there's all these rankings and dual meet records and whatever, but you're really judged by how you finish at the MAC tournament and your finish at the NCAA tournament is really how, we're going to be judged. So working out these kinks in the beginning of the years is not important. And Coach Martin might not be too excited about hearing me say that because, our dual record isn't really what it should be. But these guys are going to figure it out by the end of the year.
So in some ways, it's kind of a tournament team.
Yeah, a little bit, and that's because we're a better tournament team, obviously, because that's where our age really helps. You guys get guys like Amelia Saavedra and me and Jack and Mikey Hayes, just veterans who will really put up points at tournaments. But I think that what I'm saying is by the end of the year, these younger guys are going to be able to turn it around too and win some matches that they're not winning in dual meets right now. Is really what I'm thinking.
As we finish up this particular episode of the ODU Monarch Mattcast, football team's going to a bowl game, man. I know we're not really focusing too much on football, but it's to the Bahamas. I mean, are you trying to sneak away before Christmas to get to that? I mean, to the Bahamas Bowl? I mean, it's Popeye's chicken and the Bahamas. These are two of my favorite things.
Yeah. And my dad graduated from Eastern Michigan, and so I texted my stepmom, and I asked her, I said, hey, this is my dad and I's rivalry, kind of. I mean, can't you send us to the game? Because, that's EMU versus ODU. That's huge. But that's great for our school, and really, really happy for the football program. That's so cool it's our second year being eligible in Conference USA, or third year being eligible to go to a bowl. But we're 9-3. I mean, that's so spectacular. And hats off to them because that's really, really cool.
Okay, so the Eastern Michigan thing, I was trying to avoid this as much as possible, but dude, their football field looks like a freaking ashtray. Okay, I don't care what they say they call it. It looks like a freaking ashtray. Sorry, Lightning Luke. I'm not dogging your wrestling program, but I'm dogging that. Oh my! It hurts your eyes to watch. It just hurts so bad.
Hard to watch on TV. It's really hard to watch on TV. I'm not a fan of the Great Field either.
I mean, it's one thing if it's like 42nd Street back in the heyday where the grass was gray and that was just naturally occurring. But anyway, we're wrapping things up. Kevin Beazley, goals this season, I think it's kind of obvious what they are in terms of national championships and All-American finishes. But what's it going to take for you this season, and what is the wrestling room at Old Dominion going to do for you to help you reach your goals this year?
Yeah, I think we just got to keep doing what we're doing. And I have to keep my mindset right. I have my mind clear. And we're doing a lot of the right things. I meet with Dr. Jared Spencer about once a month with Mind of the Athlete, and he keeps my mind clear, helps me just figure out a little bit of things that I really can't figure out on my own. And our coach, and maybe I can talk to him about some stuff that I don't feel comfortable talking to other people about. And he really helps me keep my mind clear. I got to keep my body healthy. I'm getting a little older, and it's not 18 anymore, so it's a little different being able to stay healthy and fresh. But Coach Martin and I have a great plan. We're working with our training staff to keep me feeling the best I can, and I get off days when I need off days, and I just we gotta keep with my coaches and tuning up the little things that are keeping me from blowing out these matches, from winning instead of winning 3-2 and 6-0, winning 13-0, 15-0, and blowing up these closer matches, making them 8-4 or 8-3, and just score more points. So we're just working on little things, and so I can be primed and ready to win a national title in March.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to MattTalkOnline.com.